Welcome back to 5 Miles Easy with me, Rose Harvey.
And me, Steph McCall. She's an Olympian.
And she's an elite ultra runner, so you might think we have this running thing pretty figured out.
We absolutely don't, but we're on a mission to become better runners.
And we're bringing you along for the journey.
So let's lace up for 5 Miles Easy. Rose, so the last few weeks we've had so many questions about nutrition, energy availability, Red S. So we thought today we'll get on a real expert that can answer these questions way better than we can.
Absolutely. I feel like this has been a long time coming, and I'm so excited for it because even though I like to think I know a fair amount about nutrition, I've worked with nutritionists for my own performance, I still feel like, especially Red S, there's a lot that I don't quite understand, and there's a whole load of information which doesn't always sit together. So I'm really excited to sit down with a real expert today and get all the answers to our questions.
Should we just get straight into it?
Let's do it. Siân, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. This is a topic that our listeners have requested so many times, and we felt to do it justice, we had to get a real expert in. So we are so excited to chat to you. But to kick the episode off, the first question we ask all our guests is, what is your why for running?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad to talk about this topic because one of the biggest things actually about it is education and people knowing more about it. My why for running, I was actually thinking about this earlier, and I want to say just because I really love it, but that's quite, there's more to it than that. But I do think like one of the things when I'm running is my brain stops is one of my reasons, like the big reasons of why I think that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. So yeah, I'd say that's probably my why.
I can totally relate to that. I realised the other day it's like one of the only moments of the day when I don't have my phone and no one can contact me and I'm not checking, and it's literally just like my headspace. I don't know about you, but if I'm got a lot to do and I'm stressing about things or I can't solve a problem, I go for a run and then suddenly I solve it. Like, I just think of the solution on my run. It's just that headspace is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I often quite like not picking up my phone for a while after I've run. Sometimes I get that real urge of like, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to come back to the real world yet. I'm just still in my park.
Yeah, Rose said a really interesting fact about this as well, that after a training session, not looking at a screen for half an hour or something is really good for your recovery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's because obviously your body is working hard after a hard session to absorb all that training and recover from it. Mental stress is still stress, right? So engaging in your phone, going back and seeing 10 emails you've got to deal with, that like surge of stress, cortisol, impairs your recovery and your kind of absorption of that training session.
So I'm going to take that as a rule now.
Yes.
Yeah,
like, no, I'm not allowed on my phone. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
So how did you get into sports nutrition and also specialising in Red S as well?
Yeah, so I have always been like super sporty since I was younger. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So I did human biosciences at uni, which was kind of a mixture of biology and sports science. So I basically just got to like pick all the bits I really liked. And then I worked as a clinical exercise specialist. So using exercise, nutrition, lifestyle interventions with cancer and cardiac patients. So kind of to look at their outcomes pre, post, during treatment. And I loved it, but I burnt out really quickly. So I was like, I know, I'll stay in healthcare, but I'll do it from the other side. So I'll do it from the business side. So kind of had a little detour into that kind of world. And then have come back full circle and be like, no, I do really love like the on the ground side of sports. So, and the nutrition is a real passion of mine. So from my own running, I was just getting more and more into it and spending all my time reading all these journals. I'm going, well, I should probably do something with all this stuff I'm doing. And yeah, so that's how I kind of then ended up moving into the sports nutrition. And as a marathon runner, I'm really, really interested in kind of energy availability, all that kind of stuff. So when it came time to kind of pick my research project, straight away, I was like, right, I'm doing marathon runners, I'm doing Reds, and I'm doing energy, and that's what we're doing. So that's where I've kind of ended up. And I think also from kind of a personal point of view that looking back, I 100% had Red S. It's like, as a young athlete, I ticked every box. I was practically a waving red flag. And if that had been picked up by an athletics coach when I was 14, would I have had a very, very different journey through running? Probably, because it's something that actually could have had an intervention at that point, and I might have then stayed on a track, but I didn't. And that's fine. I'm happy where I am. But actually, it's very interesting. And I find, there's so much difference we can make to people with really small changes. So that's kind of my goal now, is get as much education and carry on the research into REDS, because research at the moment really is something that's pretty lacking and kind of stems from the fact that it was originally a female health issue. So it started as part of the female athlete triad, developed into REDS, and then that's why lots of guys think they can't get it right, because it's to do with girls, it's to do with periods, and it's not. So yeah, it's definitely a big passion project as well as just kind of something I'm researching.
There's so much in that, and I think RED-S has become a bit more of a hot topic at the moment, but as you say, I think a lot of it is still not understood. I mean, I'm not sure I understand it fully either, and I'm in elite sport, I should understand it, but there are just so many kind of intricacies to it. But can you just give us a bit of a deep dive on what it is exactly scientifically, or what is it doing to our physiology if an athlete has REDS?
REDS or RED-S is all like the same thing. So it's Relative Energy Deficiency in sport. And the first thing is that it's a syndrome. So it's not a disease. It's not like, it's a syndrome, and it lives on a spectrum. And there's loads of different kind of multifaceted sides of it. And me having REDS will look very different to how if you had REDS, if Steph had REDS, and every single athlete is completely different. And we say it's biologically multi-system. So the model of REDS, which is proposed by the International Olympic Committee, so they're the first people who kind of came out and were like, right, we think this is what's happening with all these athletes. Like, people are spotting patterns, kind of a lot coming from kind of like American collegiate track systems, where girls are getting, why are all these brilliant athletes getting so many bone stress injuries and breaking? Like, why are all these athletes broken? Is where people are kind of looking for patterns. And then, so we had the female athlete triad, which was low energy availability, bones and periods. But then we're going, okay, but what's happening to the male athletes? So they kind of thought about doing a male athlete triad, but they're like, no, we'll stick with one thing. So the International Olympic Committee, 2014 was the first time they went, right, this thing called REDS is a thing. Did loads more research into it. They were like, right, 2018, 2023 was their most recent consensus statement. And basically what REDS is at the centre of this model they have is low energy availability. So there is a gap in an athlete between the amount they're exercising, the amount they're eating, and then the amount of energy their body needs to just exist. So like to keep your heart beating, keep your hair growing, keep everything ticking along as it should, you've not got enough energy left in your bucket. But the way that your body deals with that versus mine versus anyone else's could be completely different. So we would look at an athlete and go, okay, so is it their performance that's struggling, or is it their health? So there's kind of two wheels. And performance-wise, it could be they're not as fast, they're not as strong, they're not seeing any benefit from their training, like they've completely plateaued, they're struggling through sessions, things like that. And then on the health side, it's where, is the menstrual cycle gone funny? For men, it's morning erections is the same kind of like the equivalent. It could be your bloods, your testosterone could be off. It could be loads of different things. It could be your sleep's not good. It could be an impact on your bones. So if you're constantly injured and you're getting stress injuries, a big, big factor for stress injuries is low energy availability because you're not recovering. So biologically, there's lots of different ways that REDS can manifest. So it's not saying that there's this one thing that is REDS and you have this one symptom, so you have it. It could actually be lots of different things on this wheel that add up to mean that an athlete has REDS. But it's basically that their body's not coping with what they're doing, and the reason for that is low energy availability.
Do you normally see more than one symptom? And I'm specifically thinking about the performance, because from kind of a logical evolutionary perspective, I would have thought performance is the first thing to turn off, because your body surely would kind of want to stay alive more than it would want to perform.
Yeah.
But does it actually work like that?
Not necessarily, because also there's a lot of things kind of that happen with performance, and also psychologically, some athletes are kind of at a higher predisposition for this because, like being a type A, being very strict with yourself, being very driven. Some people can produce one hell of a track session with very little energy, but then they will fall asleep for the rest of the day, literally not be able to do anything. Their bones are breaking. They don't have enough energy to see their friends. They hate everyone because everything is horrible. They can't focus, can't answer an email, but they can bash out a track session because their adrenaline's going, yes, this is important. But actually their body is in a complete state of like, what is going on? I don't know what's going on, but you're asking me to do this, so I'll do this, but I'm going to switch off everything else because I'm going to decide, actually, we're going to redistribute this energy. Menstrual cycle, nah, don't need that, not bothered. Like, if there's not enough energy for me to eat, I can't have a baby, so we'll turn that off. But I'll keep your heart ticking. But actually, at nighttime, I'm going to send your heart rate through the floor, and you're going to think that's really cool because you're like, oh, yeah, my resting heart rate's 35. And you're going to be like, yes. But actually, it's actually not good because your body's going, no, we don't have enough energy, so we're just going to keep it really low. So it's actually not necessarily performance that will be the first thing that goes. But it's also quite a retrospective thing that a lot of athletes will think their performance was amazing at the time, will then be diagnosed with REDS, have a stress injury, have a few months off, gain a bit of weight perhaps, maybe not, because actually weight also isn't something that means you do or do not have REDS. And then when they go back to training and they're fueling properly, they're like, oh, I could have been performing a lot better for a lot longer if I'd actually been fueling properly.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, isn't it? I find it so interesting, like how smart the body is in prioritizing certain functions. So someone wants to do a good session, the body will allow that, but equally it will shut off everything else, which is terrible as well. How is it actually caused? Because you say, it's energy availability, is that simply not eating enough? Or could it be on the other side that you're eating fine, but you're doing too much?
Yeah, so there's a few different theories, and again, it's something that will be quite different in different athletes. So in theory, the main thing is that there is not enough energy in for the energy going out. But the energy going out isn't just your running. So, and it's also not just like your body existing. It's like you need a lot of energy. If I sat here for 48 hours, I'd still need to eat a lot of food, even though I've not moved. So it's actually looking at your life more holistically. And that's what some of the new research into REDS is actually saying, that we need to be looking at athletes as holistic individuals. So going, actually, what do you do for work? Like, are you a nurse? Are you on your feet all day? What are you doing? Are you opening your inbox and you've got screaming emails at you all day? Your cortisol is sky high. So then your body, again, is using more energy. Are you super anxious? Is there other things going on? If you've got money worries, if you've got family problems, are you fighting some sort of illness that you're like, oh, it's so fine, I can train through. But if you're not eating any more for that, so it's again, all these drains on your energy that you might not think as an athlete are important, you could actually be unintentionally not eating enough. And therefore you end up with this low energy availability. And if you kind of think of it as like scales, your body can manage like a little bit under. If the next day you'll then be super hungry and like, after a long run, sometimes you're like, I'm going to eat this because I know I have to, but it's tough. And then the next morning you're like, I want to eat everything. It's because your body's smart. It's going, okay, you didn't have enough yesterday, but we can make it back up and we're kind of okay. But if every single day you're not eating enough, intentionally or unintentionally, that gap gets bigger. And then how are we making that gap up? So your body turning things off is where that gap is, how it's making it up. So you're not really making it up. You're kind of like just sinking other things. So your bar of what you need is coming down because your body's going, right, if I can't have this, I'll settle for this, but I'll turn off this. So it's all kind of balance. But yeah, it kind of comes down to, is it intentional restriction or is it unintentional? There's also some theories, again, which needs way more research into within day energy availability. So particularly for women and the impact on hormones. So as we were saying, kind of cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, all these kind of stress and non-stress hormones that your body has a cycle of daily. Having the right amount of energy overall is super important. Like end number needs to be what we're hitting. But actually, if you're waking up, doing a massive session, and then you're not eating again until 4:00, you've got half of your day where your body's going, excuse me, I'm in starvation. What are you doing? And then your body's going, it doesn't care how much you're eating later on. And actually, they've shown that you will have issues with testosterone, issues with estrogen, cortisol, by having that within day energy availability issue. So that's the kind of where the timing around your sessions come in. But again, this is all kind of studies that have been very anecdotal and they've not been strategic interventions. So from a science point of view, if you had to battle that argument with scientific papers, you'd probably lose. Not because it's not true, but because the science and the research still isn't there and it's very new. But yeah, it's the kind of, just because you're eating enough, you still might actually have REDS because of those within day energy issues, which, yeah, is especially important for women.
There's so much to get into there. We're going to get all into the fueling side of it, and definitely want to come back to that point on timing, because that's one thing that I think I've learned over the last few years, kind of how important that is, actually, just for me personally and how I feel. But park that for a second, because I want to just get into how you actually figure out if you have Red S, because there are lots of symptoms there that we talked about, but could any be, I guess some are quite generic. So how do you actually, if someone comes to you and is having issues with performance, say, or, might not be able to sleep, how do you figure out if they actually do have Red S? Do you do blood tests, or is it a bit more kind of stab in the dark, let's try this and see what happens?
Yeah, because actually a lot of it is, and for a lot of athletes, they just go, oh, but I'm marathon training, so this is what's meant to happen, isn't it? So, oh, you're not meant to be actually completely, on the floor. But so for an official REDS diagnosis, it has to be a sports doctor or a medical doctor. Physios, nutritionists, dietitians can all suggest, but they can't actually diagnose. And what a doctor would use is something called the REDS Cat2, which is kind of the current diagnostic criteria. And within that, there's kind of 3 sections. So the first one would be a screening tool, and each doctor will have their one that they prefer. There's loads of them. They're just kind of questionnaires of be things like, what's your relationship with food like? How much are you eating? How's your period? How's your hormones feel? How do you feel? So those kind of questionnaires are the first. And then what will happen is they'll kind of look at you on a spectrum, because there really is a spectrum of REDS. You can kind of be lower end, or you can be really, really severe issues. And depending on where you are on that spectrum would then depend on kind of clinically what someone would do with you. So blood tests are a really good thing for runners to be regularly doing, especially if you're marathon training, just to be monitoring what's going on. With a REDS diagnosis, they're actually looking at, okay, what can we rule out? So we're going to rule out any major hormonal issues. We're going to rule out that it's being caused by something else. So for them to be able to say, okay, this is REDS, we've got to rule out everything else. And then bloods-wise, they're kind of looking at testosterone, cortisol, estrogen. But just because those are normal doesn't mean you don't have REDS. And then if you're looking at a REDS diagnosis, it's a team approach. So yes, you'd need a sports doctor to diagnose you, but you'd need a physio, you'd need a nutritionist, because the doctor doesn't know what the nutritionist knows, and likewise. So it's actually a very team-focused treatment plan. But just because you don't have an official REDS diagnosis does not mean that you don't have REDS, or you don't struggle with it, or actually as a runner you shouldn't be aware of it, because they're all things that as runners, even if you don't have REDS, you can still have red flags. So you can still have things that make you go, maybe I should adjust my nutritional approach, or maybe I should adjust my training. Maybe I'm not coping very well. Has my kind of recovery window shrunk because I've got up earlier and I've started going to bed later and work's got crazy. If you start then noticing these symptoms coming up, it's kind of, there's a reason. You need to look at why. And with the low energy availability, we say it's problematic when it's really long term. So the longer you are in that suboptimal state, the more issues you're going to have, and the more your body's going to go, come on, let's not do this. And it will whisper before it screams. It's such a good saying in so many ways of running, because actually you'll get those kind of whispers. Maybe your period cycle gets a bit long, or you start having 1 or 2 less morning erections. Actually, then you go, but it's fine. It's just a little, no, but it's a flag. It's your body going, I'm whispering to you. So that's where it's quite good if we can catch it. And all runners know about this. You don't need to have a REDS diagnosis to be aware and to know and to see the signs, because signs are just as important, because we'd rather catch you when you're having signs of problems than before you've got, a full sacral hip fracture and, you can't run at all.
Yeah.
So it's actually, it builds up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of athletes who have come out of the other side of REDS or are coming out of it and gone, I just wish I knew sooner, and I just wish that I'd changed something earlier and that I'd actually listened, because that's the big kind of thing of, we can stop things progressing to that. But yeah, clinically it's sports doctor, but it doesn't have to be clinical for you to kind of think and go, actually, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, for sure. And there might be people listening now where they're actually thinking, you know what, everything you're saying, I feel, well, there might even be a couple things. Actually, I feel like I have that. If you are someone that is experiencing Red S, is there a way to get better so it kind of can you fully reverse all the damage you've done and be fully healthy, or have you done lifelong damage?
Again, it's kind of quite individual. So it would depend on an individual's kind of where they've ended up and what they've got to. The one thing is like the bone health, which depending on how long you've been chronically in red S for, again, it's something that then you end up having. You have DEXA scans, and you will work with a doctor who will help you with your bones, and a nutritionist who will help you with your bones, and a physio will help you with the load bearing. But actually, for most athletes, it's completely reversible. We just have to look after our bodies, because it's actually, you only get one. So you want to be nice to it, because then it'll be nice to you, and then it'll let you do what you want to be able to do. If you really are struggling though, the best thing to do is to reach out to someone, whether it's a nutritionist or your physio, anyone at all, because one of the things is that with reds, like, doctors might not know about it or might not see it as kind of a problem. Like, I was definitely told when I was younger that I should go on the pill because I don't have a period, which we're not doing. So yeah, it's the kind of thing of going, actually find someone who knows about reds, and if you're worried, speak to them. You don't have to have a REDS diagnosis to speak to a REDS nutritionist or to speak to your physio. And actually, one of those things that might be a big red flag to you is you're constantly injured. So then hopefully you have access to a physio anyway, because you'll be speaking to them about why you're constantly injured. So yeah, it's just kind of having conversations with people and thinking to yourself, if you've got a gut feeling that something's wrong, something probably is. So it's okay to talk about it.
If you've had red S, does it make you more susceptible to it again? Like, how careful do you have to be to not fall back into it? And I'm thinking, does your body kind of know and see a very early warning sign of underfueling and think, okay, well, I'm going to shut down quicker this time because last time we got into trouble? Does it actually work like that?
Anecdotally, some people say, oh, I'm really sensitive to this. But also, scientifically, it's very grey. But actually, you either are fueling properly and have plenty of energy and you have good energy availability, or you do not. Like, it's a yes, or it's kind of a blanket category. And if you're one of those people who feels like they're a bit playing with fire, playing with danger, you're probably not fully in the safe camp. Like, you're probably not fully where you need to be. If you're kind of on a week by week basis going, oh, am I having these symptoms this week? Yes, no, maybe. You're probably a bit borderline. So actually, could you be increasing your nutrition? Probably. And would you feel better? Probably. So actually, it's then going, well, if you're in that susceptibility bracket, why are you keeping yourself there? Like, do you have a belief around race weight? Do you have a belief that, oh, I should or shouldn't be having a behaviour with food? And actually, those are kind of also things that feed into reds, because one of the big things that we say with reds that's a real indicator and real kind of sign that someone's more at risk is history of an eating disorder or disordered eating. So those kind of things really feed into it. So it's kind of then analysing with yourself and being super honest and saying, actually, am I being a bit funny or a bit restrictive? Am I being very black and white? Am I being a bit overcautious, or am I judging myself with my choices with food? Because actually those are all places that this kind of, oh, I'm really sensitive to it. So because your body's probably clawing on for every dear morsel of food you're giving it. So actually there is, in elite sport, it's a different thing, because, you know, there's track, there's different stresses on your body. But if you are a day-to-day runner, we don't want you anywhere near that danger line. Like, there's no need. So yeah, that's kind of where the sensitivity comes into it with it.
Okay, interesting. And could you say you've never had problems before? Just naturally, can people be more susceptible? Is there like a kind of going back to the timing, I guess, with fueling, is there some people can deal with a buffer window that's smaller than others? Like, they could wait a bit later and actually have no problem at all?
It's very anecdotal again, because it's not really something that there's been ever really properly researched or controlled interventions into. Women are 100% more sensitive than men. Well, okay, that's a bad stat. That's me saying women are way more susceptible than men, because our bodies are more sensitive. It's a reason that women need more body fat. We need more body fat to just exist and function. So actually, our energy reserve is more precious. So we can't have as low a body fat percentage as a man. We just cannot. So actually, if we're closing to that line, we're in more danger than a man. And actually, as a reason as well why we see a lot more stress fractures in women than men, because of hormones and because of those hormonal changes. And if we are really pushing hard in our training, the priority just needs to be nutrition and recovery. So actually going, oh, just because you're eating fine, if you're then rushing to the office, doing 20,000 steps, walking around London, walking the dog, picking up kids, running after kids, you're still doing things. Like, you're still on your feet. So it's actually looking at your days, not just like nutrition. Oh, I'm fine, I drank some chocolate milk. It's like, oh, it's better than not having chocolate milk, but it's actually looking at your whole holistic, which makes it difficult because it's not a black and white answer. But actually, it's one of those things of like, if you can follow a guideline and do what you know is better for you, do. Yeah. So that's kind of at the moment, we can't scientifically say, but kind of, yeah, you're better off having than not having.
Rose, did you know after the age of 30, you lose 1% of your body's collagen every year?
That is crazy. So I've already lost 2%, which is a huge amount to replenish, especially as I'm an endurance athlete.
Thankfully, Pillar Performance have released their collagen repair product, which has been specifically developed to address the most common tendon and ligament issues among endurance athletes.
Some things we've both struggled with and so many runners struggle with: hamstring tendinopathy, Achilles tendinitis, shin splints. Collagen could really help you. And Pillar Performance's collagen repair has a clinically trialled collagen peptide, which specifically focuses on repairing those tendons. All you need is 1 scoop daily, and unlike a lot of collagen products which don't taste great, Pillars is completely flavourless, so you can even add it to your morning coffee.
It really is great, and if our listeners want to try it, they can head to pillarperformance.shop, or for North American customers, thefeed.com, and enter the code 5mileseasy for 15% off their first order.
Thanks to Pillar Performance for supporting this podcast and keeping us injury-free. What would your guideline be if you could give someone a guideline for kind of a great fueling strategy that would avoid reds? What would it be?
Firstly, it's just enough. Like,
Yeah.
you need enough food. Carbs are king for runners, especially. And a lot of people actually think that not having enough protein gave them reds. But as endurance runners, yes, we need more protein than an average person, but you still need the carbs. Like, the carbs are going to be the most important thing. It's very unlikely anyone in kind of Western society eating a Western diet is going to be lacking in protein. So it's having enough as the first thing, and then eating around your sessions. So making sure you're fueling before, super, super important, especially for female hormones, that we're not running fasted. I don't care if it's a half an hour easy run, do not do it fasted, because again, it's why are you doing that? And also, you just don't need to put that stress on your body. So even if it's just a squares bar or a couple of dates or half a gel or some Percy Pigs, like, feels a bit naughty having Percy Pigs first thing in the morning. But yeah, anything. And if we're doing big track sessions, we're not doing those on a squares bar. We're doing those on actual, having had some real food. And then afterwards, again, fueling and making sure you're having proper meals throughout the day. So, because it's not just what you're having around your sessions, because you could fuel perfectly around your session and then not eat anything till 7 p.m. and your body's going, hang on a minute, I thought we were being good today. So actually, it's remembering that it's not just in the moment, it's kind of full day. It's a full-time job, eating. So actually, we can't just leave our bodies hours and half days without food. But yeah, before and after sessions. And then the hard thing is like, well, how do I know what's enough, right? Like, how do I know?
Yeah, because it's so individual.
Exactly. And it's like, everyone's a different size. Everyone burns glucose at a different rate. It's the same with gels. If you think of it kind of the equivalent of like, well, how many gels do you take? How many do you take? How often do you take them? And there's guidelines and there's ways we work and there's things we can try. And I personally am not a fan of counting, weighing food. I just don't think it's a useful thing, often because it's so inaccurate, but also as for your relationship with food and with running, we don't want to be creating any like run and reward. Food is food. It can have function and it can be fun, but actually food is fuel when we're looking at running. And you have to eat sometimes when you don't want to as a runner. Like, I don't want to eat a bagel at 5 a.m. to be honest, but am I going to? Yes. So before your session, we tend to say and look at kind of 1 to 3 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. So if you were really, really unsure, what you could do is you could look at, okay, so I know that for me, my size, maybe a bagel and a half and a banana and a glass of orange juice is what I need pre a session. And then we go, okay, so after a session, we want a bit more carbs. So we might go 3 to 4 grams per kilogram of body weight straight afterwards. And across the day, the amount of carbohydrate an endurance runner is needing is kind of 6 to 10 grams per kilogram of body weight. If you're training super, super heavily, it could be 8 to 12 grams. And so it's kind of looking at that, okay, let's look at grams of carbohydrate rather than calories, because it's a more kind of quantifiable amount. And it's going, okay, I know that before a session, bagel and half, a banana, orange juice hits my grams. And you just only have to work that out once. And then you kind of get an idea of, okay, this is roughly for me and my size and how much exercise I'm doing. This is roughly the grams of carbohydrate I need. So that's quite a good way if like you're completely no idea how much is too much. But also listening to hunger cues, which can be difficult kind of around sessions because a lot of people I speak to struggle to eat after a run or things like that. But actually, can you go, okay, across the day, am I getting to like 9 o'clock and I am starving and I'm eating 4 bowls of cereal after dinner? If that's you, I'd probably have some more in the morning. Like thinking about, okay, what's my body telling me? Am I hungry? Am I not? When am I more hungry? Okay, if I know I'm going to try and eat 4 bowls of cereal after dinner because I've done a big session and I know I'm going to be starving, why don't I try and have some granola in the middle of the afternoon, like have an extra snack, even if I don't want it, because actually that might then make me feel better later on.
Is that better to space the fuel out rather than having like a massive meal in the evening?
Yeah. So it's again the kind of like within day energy availability, especially if you get to like 3 o'clock and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to go to bed. I'm so tired. I can't read my emails. I can't form a sentence. You might not feel hungry, but that could be the way that your body's telling you it's hungry. So I often get like weird hunger things that I don't necessarily feel it in my tummy because I'm probably full of water because I've chugged so much after my session. But actually I might be a bit shaky or a bit kind of confused or I'm really distracted. And actually, if I'm super distracted, if I go and have a snack and I come back, I'm power hours. I'm great. And that was my sign that I was hungry. So it's kind of looking at your body and go like, what is it telling me? Is it giving me a sign that I probably need some more food?
Yeah, so interesting. And I often think that fueling, you're working so hard with your training and committed to, I guess, if you're training for a marathon, you're committed to all those sessions and runs, that equally fueling is part of that. So like you say, if after a session you don't feel like eating, well, you've got to get something in, and that's just part of the training session almost.
Yeah, exactly. And when I work with people, I quite often will say, okay, so when do you plan your sessions a week? So say on a Sunday night, you sit down, you open your Training Peaks. If you're planning, okay, so I'm going to do this session after work, I'm going to do this one in the morning, I'll do this here, plan in your food as well. So think, okay, so what am I going to eat? Do I need to have something in my bag because I'm then going straight to the office? Is it going to take me an hour to get home from track and then I'm going to have a shower and sort my bag out? So actually, you're not going to eat dinner till 2 hours after track. Okay, so have you got a banana and some chocolate milk in your bag? Those small things of just kind of thinking, okay, every training session is a cue to eat. Okay, if I can plan that, that's going to make my life so much easier. And then it becomes something you don't have to think about as much. And it becomes a bit more intuitive.
And does it matter what carbs we're eating? Are Percy pigs the same as dates, same as brown rice? Does our body actually know the difference? Or is it just, okay, replenish some sugar?
So it's all about kind of timings with those things. So if I'm having brown rice, that's a complex carb. So that is going to give me a blood sugar boost way slower than a Percy pig. And when we're running, we want different things at different times, because there's also a fibre content there. So I know like a lot of people might go, oh, I can't eat muesli before I run because of the fibre. So we want to save fibre for after. And then we also want to, though, have a mixture of kind of simple and complex. So straight after a session, your priority is sugar. Like if people go, oh, I don't want chocolate milk because it's got loads of sugar in it. That's literally the point. Like we want the sugar because what we're trying to do is get our blood glucose levels stable. We're trying to replenish the glycogen in our muscles. And that is quick, easy sugars. So that's just what we need. But you don't need that in the middle of the afternoon. Then is when you're looking at a more complex source. So it's kind of catching your blood sugar. So it keeps it going up more stable. So if you've heard of kind of GI indexes, it's all linked to that kind of thing. So our body can tell the difference, but it wants both, and it wants them at different times.
Just want to touch on during runs as well, because a couple of reasons. Firstly, I really noticed a difference when I started fueling more during sessions. So long runs always used to fuel well, but I didn't really used to think about it for my shorter track sessions because I was like, well, they're over in half an hour. Before, if I have a gel, then it's going to be, by the time it hits, I'll be done. But I started having gels and drinks throughout because of the recovery, and I noticed such a big difference. Didn't get the afternoon slump, felt great for my double and everything. So there's that point. And we also get a lot of people asking what to eat because they have to go out at 6 a.m. So if you can't have a big breakfast, if you can only have a banana or, a little snack before you go, does it also work to take a gel mid-run, even if you're only doing 45 minutes or whatever, just to top up? Does that compensate for not having enough fuel before?
Yeah, so it's a super interesting one. And I think a lot of people would find if they fueled more during their long runs and during their sessions, they'd feel so much better. And it's not until, for a lot of runners, until they actually do it and they go, oh, I should have listened to you earlier. It's really weird. These sports nutritionists, they know what might help. And it's a real thing of kind of pre-recovery. So there's a lot of research into carbohydrate utilization during exercise and actually what happens to this carbohydrate. So they call it exogenous carbohydrate that you're taking on during a run. And the way it works, and especially during kind of like long training sessions and marathons, is that one of them is it's sparing your liver glycogen. So it's basically your body's going, oh, I'm going to use this super easily accessible sugar rather than dig into the muscle, into the fuel cell that's in your liver. So I'm going to leave that where it is and I'll use this instead. So your blood sugars stay more stable and your body's going, I'm safe. I've got loads of glycogen in my liver, so I'm not going to hit the wall yet. I'm good. So that's one way it works. Another way is it kind of, they think it tricks your brain a bit. And then there's loads of other ways where all the scientists are going, not quite sure why it works, but it does, so let's keep doing it. And let's increase the number of grams of carbs we try and have per hour. And a big thing that they're kind of finding now in the research is that it is this pre-recovery. So your muscles are almost able to kind of go, oh, we've got glucose here. Now we've finished running. Well, let's put the glycogen back in your legs. So then you feel better for your double because you've started recovering earlier. And that's especially if you're double running. That first half an hour post-run is super important to refuel. If you're doing like kind of 2 sessions in a day, like that is your golden window where you're going to get your muscles are most receptive to be able to really quickly get some glycogen back. And then if you're running super early in the morning, like it is really hard, but there are tips and kind of tricks you can use. And liquid carbohydrates, whether that's literally just orange juice, like people forget how useful that is, like a glass of orange juice, instead of waking up and having a glass of water, just have a glass of orange juice, squares bars, bananas, and also training your gut. I can now eat a full bagel and go for a run half an hour later, whereas I used to be an hour and a half plus. And the more you practice, the more you can do it. But again, that having a gel during, your body's going, oh, okay, I have got enough carbs. Like I have got carbs, it's cool. That 1 hour before a session, people, like the science kind of says like 25 to 30 grams of carbs is what you'd ideally have. So gel. So actually you could just wake up and have a gel. Feels quite aggressive. But yeah, then having gels during that run, especially if you're doing if you're doing anything more than just like a casual jog, being able to support your body and go, okay, we don't need to freak out. We're fine. We're choosing to do this run. No one's chasing us. Actually there's links with kind of the cortisol response and those kind of things and that pre-recovery. So yeah, it's definitely far better to do that than to do nothing.
Yeah, I think it's a good message for listeners as well, because a lot of people, and I've heard this personally multiple times, where someone's like, I don't really feel like I need the gel. And like, you might not feel like you need it, but if you have it, you're going to feel way better for having it than not having it.
Yeah.
And you're going to survive without it.
Yeah, and it's also just like, with all of this, it's just use yourself as like an N of 1 guinea pig and treat it as an experiment. If you really hate it, fine, don't do it again. But you probably will feel better and you probably will want to do it again. So it's just kind of going, okay, fine, I'm going to do an experiment. This could be kind of fun. Let's try it. And if you look at it kind of as like a bit of a gamify it, treat yourself like a sim. Be like, okay, what am I doing today? I'm going to feed myself this and see what happens. And actually, you might find that you tolerate better and then recover better.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you're saying about the liver thing, because I mean, this is exactly what I did. It was a bit of an experiment because I would feel fine during my session and then it would be on my cool down. Literally the last mile, I'll be like, oh my God, I am really trying hard not to get hit by a car here because I can't concentrate. Then go back, eat lots of food, really refuel. But then still in the afternoon, I was just like, I just stare at my laptop screen and I just can't do anything. Like, surely I shouldn't feel this bad. So that was why I started taking on more, because I was like, I can't eat anymore afterwards. Like, I'm stuffing myself. Like, let's try having more during the session, even though I feel I don't need it. But maybe that's what was happening. It was like going into my liver glycogen. And then my body was like, oh my God, we've really had to dig out the stores here. We're just going to shut down for the afternoon. And it did make a real difference. But it is just, yeah, it's kind of, as you say, experimenting with things and just figuring out what works.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so carbs are obviously super, super important, but protein and fat, we need them as well. How much do we need? How do we get it in?
Protein for endurance athletes, people tend to say kind of 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So again, it's the same kind of thing. We can maybe have a look what that looks like for you. just have a look once and be like, okay, cool, this is how much. And it's one of those things of going, actually, yes, protein is important and we do need to be having it, but it's in those meals. So a post-run meal, your lunch, your dinner, we don't want to be having it before our runs because it's just going to slow down our digestion. It's not giving us the energy we need. It's going to mean our breakfast takes even longer to digest. So then you're delayed going on your run. So actually think, okay, so post-run meal, protein, cool. And then your other meals of the day, you want your carbs complex, protein, fat, fiber. So yeah, protein is important, but also just because something says protein on the packet doesn't mean it's like the best option. And I often get people saying, okay, post session, I'm just gonna have a protein shake. Much rather you had a chocolate milk or something with carbs and protein, because your body can't do anything with the protein if it's not got any carbs. So you actually need the carbs to drive like what you need the protein for. But yeah, it is important, but it's not as important as some people like try to make out. So yeah, that's the kind of range of, if you're having a good portion of protein with all your main meals, you're probably fine. Greek yogurt's great. Like, we don't have to supplement with protein powder if you don't want to.
And should we all be taking creatine? Because this is another thing I feel like is such a hot topic. I see it all over my Instagram. Every runner should be taking creatine.
Honestly, we do a whole podcast on it. So creatine is great. And there are people it works for and there's people who it doesn't work for. And there's actually quite a lot of research coming out now specifically for endurance athletes, because it was just kind of researched in power athletes, because what it does is it's part of the ATP pathways in your muscles. So naturally we all have creatine in our muscles. We use it, it's great, it's fun. But we use it for that really quick energy, so that really fast ATP. So if we were to do like a 100-meter sprint, our creatine is kind of ramping up. But the whole idea behind taking creatine and supplementing with it is that there's just more in your muscles. So I couldn't take it now and then go for a run and be like, oh yeah, charged up. You have to, over time, increase the stores in your muscle. And basically what it helps you do is recover quicker during those really fast bouts. There is also some theory now that it helps with kind of muscle glycogen, but it's not hard, fast, widely accepted science yet. So actually, as endurance runners, are we getting benefits from creatine because it helps us in our interval sessions more? So then we recover faster from our intense intervals. So then before we get more out of our session, for us, that's probably more where the benefit of creatine is coming from, not helping us during a marathon, because that's not the energy cycle it's helping with. So actually, I do personally take it and I do find it made a massive difference for me. Also made a massive difference in my strength work. I felt like I was able to kind of deadlift heavier quicker. I got better at pull-ups, all these kind of small things where I noticed a difference personally. But some people take it and go, it's horrible, I hate it, I gained loads of water weight. So there is an argument that for kind of maybe a track athlete, if weight is important to them, maybe not, like could be useful. But again, it's one of those things of practice and see. But so basically when it stores in your muscles, it also stores water molecules with it. So some people feel kind of puffy when they first start taking it, but actually the science for the water retention thing shows that it normalizes. And what happens is the strength benefit gains you get from supplementing with creatine, you have to have more water in your muscles to make them stronger. So actually you balance out. So the water being there is actually not a bad thing.
Interesting.
It's more nuanced for a marathon runner than yes, no, you should take it. Some people love, some people loathe.
How fast do you have to be to actually get the benefit? Because when you said about 100-meter sprinting, my first thought was like, I mean, I can't physically run quick enough to get that benefit. But then you said about sessions. So is it more effort level than actually fast twitch muscle fibers?
Yeah, it's definitely more effort level. So it's kind of going, if I were to kind of pick up this table and just like fling it above my head really quickly, my muscles are going, oh, okay, we're doing something. And it's that fast, like they need energy right then. So your kind of first like 1 to 10 seconds of a really hard effort is where your muscles are using that energy system, which is where it's used, like needs that ATP regeneration. So it's that kind of period and window. But also your muscle doesn't go, okay, we're changing gears now. I'm only using this energy system. Now I'm only using carbs. Now I'm only using fat. Kind of mixes them all around. And if you're doing intervals, kind of 400, 800 meters, you will be using that energy system. So you will need to be replenishing your ATP faster than if you were just kind of doing like a long zone 2 plod. Like a zone 2 plod, you wouldn't touch it. Yeah. Like you wouldn't be needing to max it out. Whereas you're doing hard efforts, your muscles are really, really ramping up. So that's where it could help then that recovery between your intervals. So then if you can go harder on your next interval because you've recovered better, you're then going to get more out of your session. So actually that's where for like marathons, you'd probably be getting the most benefit.
Oh, sounds like the secret to my 400 metre PB here.
We're all going to go and be 400 metre runners now.
Does it work straight away? How long do you have to be taking it for to see the benefit?
Yeah, so most people see a benefit of kind of 2-3 weeks. So you have to take it really consistently. So you have to take it every day, because the whole idea is we're topping up the level in our muscle and keeping it there. So if you then stop taking it for a week, you've then got to start all over again. So it's actually building it up to then keep it there and keep going.
What about other supplements? So are there any other supplements that you would really recommend every runner takes?
Yeah. So I very much am kind of food first approach. So we can get absolutely everything we need from food. So the only things that are worth supplementing with are creatine if you choose to take it, because you cannot get the amount you need to supplement with from real food. Like you'd have to eat a huge amount of raw steak every day to be able to get the same amount you can get in like one little tiny scoop of creatine. And then the other thing is vitamin D, especially in the winter if you live in the UK, because that really plays into bone health. So for runners, it's like super important. But other than those two, you can get everything you need from your food.
What about iron? Because that's the one thing I always have to supplement with, especially because I'm about to go to altitude. So I've been supplementing, testing, making sure my iron levels are good. But I do find I have to be really on it to get my iron levels up enough.
Yeah, and a lot of especially female runners struggle with this. Again, one of the reasons why actually as runners it's really useful to have bloods done, because like I'm the same. Like I struggle with iron, and it's to do with like foot strike hemolysis. So as runners, when you're just constantly stepping, you actually do break down some of your red blood cells. And then if you're menstruating, again, it's another way you're losing iron. So, and you're saying you're going to altitude, you're going to be making more red blood cells and your body needs something to make them out of. So actually, yeah, for you, that's a perfect example of where actually you do need to supplement, because you'd probably have to eat a silly amount of steak to get the iron you need. And there's also there's two types of iron. So kind of the accessibility to your body for that iron. And then you're looking at, okay, so to absorb this iron, do I then also need some kind of like fat soluble vitamins? Like what else is supporting my body to be able to use this iron? But iron, not everyone will need it. So you might go and have your bloods and your iron might be absolutely fab. You might not need it because your diet, your body is happy how it is. But yeah, for some people, iron is important.
I was also reading about how much with you getting it from foods, because I'm the same. I kind of like to get most things from just a healthy, balanced diet. But I was reading about how much, like spinach, for example, people say it's high in iron, and then literally you'd have to have like a skip load of spinach to get enough iron for one day, and hence why I just take the tablets.
And what about fat as well? I feel like that's quite a big macronutrient we haven't delved into. So what is the importance of fat?
Fats is something that your body needs, firstly, to help absorb kind of vitamins. So there's some vitamins that are fat soluble. So to be able to get those vitamins into your body, you need fat as well. And also fat is really energy dense. So as runners, if you're trying to consume a really high amount of energy, it can be a really great way to get in more energy when you don't have that much space. So if we think kind of like volume wise, potentially if you're having to eat a huge amount, volume wise, actually if you use fat, you can kind of shrink down the amount you need. And then there's kind of different fats that are really important. So you have your omegas, which is kind of oily fish, nuts, and avocados as well have that in, and chia seeds. And then also there's like kind of all the other fatty acids that your body needs. So these come from basically having well-rounded sources of protein and fat. So when you're building your meals, we want to see a source of each macronutrient on your plate. And the fats are kind of like the toppings. So we want about 20% of our daily energy intake to come from fat. And if you hit that, you've probably got it all covered. The one is the omegas that actually, are you getting them from somewhere? So are you having oily fish? Or are you perhaps supplementing if you don't like oily fish? But yeah, so when you're building your meals, start with your carbs, then your protein, then think about your fats and fibre. So your fibres, your veg and stuff. The more colours on your plate, the better, because then the more antioxidants and vitamins you're getting. And then fats. So think if you're having salmon as your protein, actually great, because you've got some really good fats in there. But could you add some avo or some nuts? Or have you got olive oil? Did you cook with olive oil? Did you put butter in? Did you add something like that? Or actually, are you having loads of peanut butter with your dessert bowl? It's just making sure that actually there are fats on each plate. And when you're building your plates, building them like that is quite a useful way to then like make sure you're ticking all the boxes.
How do you fuel yourself? I'm always so intrigued with experts who come on, and we were talking about this before the show. Aidan, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, isn't, by his own admission, sometimes struggles to follow his own advice as a physio. But as a nutritionist, how do you fuel yourself? Do you track things? Is it more intuitive? How do you kind of build each meal for your training?
Yeah, I'm very anti-tracking of food. I just don't think it's good for anyone. And I'm also quite anti like what I eat in a day videos, because it really is so personal of like what your body needs, what you're doing, what's going on day to day. And something that I've had to work really hard to be able to listen to my body and go, okay, what is it actually trying to tell me? And now I know my weird symptoms that actually mean I'm hungry and all these kind of things. And it's really encouraging people to kind of dial in. But something I find really useful is like having a food structure. So for me, pretty much every single day looks like 3 meals, 3 snacks, plus the rest of the snacks that sneak in. But like actually going, okay, so am I having at least 3 meals, at least 3 snacks? Having that as my kind of benchmark is a good way to know that I'll be fueling enough. And if there's a session going on, it's probably 4 meals, because I'm having a pre-breakfast, a post-breakfast, then a snack, then a lunch, then a snack, then dinner, then pudding, then a night snack. So actually, for some people, it might look like I eat an insane amount, but it's working out actually over the years. I thought I was eating enough, but I wasn't. And then it's going, okay, you need more and you need some more. And actually, yeah, that's kind of structure is what I find works really well in kind of making sure that you're eating enough. And then like fueling during sessions and learning what works with your body.
Yeah, I think that's the most common thing especially with marathon running. People just don't realize like how much you need.
Yeah.
And actually it's quite hard to overdo it. Like you're burning so many calories unless you're really going to McDonald's for every single meal and, you know, McFlurries in between. Like it is quite hard to have too many calories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, a lot of people come into marathon running and go, I signed up for the London Marathon, I'm going to lose loads of weight. And I'll be like, oh, please don't do that. Like if you're losing weight during a marathon block, and you're like a regular marathon runner and you're training a lot, it's actually a really bad sign. And equally, not losing weight doesn't necessarily mean that you're fueling properly. So that's one thing, like when people come to me like, oh, I gained loads of weight during my marathon training. It's like, actually, probably because your body might have needed to, but also if you were restricting, your body might actually have gained more weight because it's going into panic mode. And it's going, right, I know you're not going to give me enough next week. So anything extra, I'm going to take now. And I'm also going to turn a few things down. So actually, it's so true that those people might have found if they'd fueled properly and fueled more, they wouldn't have gained weight, which is like a really confusing concept. As marathon runners, we've got to try and make our bodies feel as safe as possible, because they've got to know that we've got them, they're fine. We're choosing to do this. We're not like there's not something going wrong. Like we are choosing to run this much. So you're going to give it all the food to go, no, we're fine. Like we can do this. But yeah, it is, like you say, it's very, very difficult to overfuel. And also nothing bad ever happened from overfueling. Whereas underfueling is where we start seeing problems.
Yeah, that's such a good point, actually. And if you could give one golden rule for everyone listening around fueling your running, what would it be?
I actually think it would be that nothing bad comes from overfueling.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly difficult too.
Yeah.
So actually, the more you fuel the fire, the hotter it's going to burn. So actually, surely only good, exciting things are going to come from us fueling properly. And you have to work with your body, not against it. So if you really have to, just treat yourself like a toddler and just eat, sleep, snack, repeat.
Love that.
I love that. That is a great golden rule. And our final question, which we ask all our guests, is if you could give yourself a big high five for one moment in your career, running, life, or other life, what would it be?
I think it's got to be an ultra marathon I did with my friend Anna. So we signed up for a 75k ultra, and it was meant to be in the summer. So we were like, oh, it's going to be lovely. And it rained the whole time, like torrential rain. And we got to the last aid station and they were like, oh, you're first women. And then we got really, really carried away and we ended up winning. And it was one of those moments that we ran across like hand in hand. And it was just one of those, like, I still think about it, I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Yeah. And to do it with someone like, with my best friend. So yeah.
Oh, that is so
amazing.
Cool.
Big high five.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your amazing knowledge. I know this will be so helpful for people because we've had so many questions about it. And you've answered so many of my questions. So thank you very, very much for sharing everything today.
No,
Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us for 5 Miles Easy.
See you next time.